So, Mr. Kevin Harris, thank you for spending some time with me today on this Sunday, and really looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. Me too.
Right
Thanks.
on. Yeah, we met at the World Roundup, and I really had a great time at that event.
Yeah.
And even before going, having sort of started to get into freestyle just a couple years ago, you were my first favorite, and it was a pretty cool experience to get to meet you and interact with the community in that way. So thanks for being so gracious, and I thought the event was really cool.
Oh no, thanks a lot. No, I think it's our 12th year now, so we've been doing it for quite some time. But yeah, I mean it's a passion of mine, right? So to bring it to that level, it's pretty exciting to watch how many, countries now are got these incredible freestyle, especially Japan. The kids coming out of there insane.
For
You know?
sure. I'm very focused on their scene, and I have some friends there. And I actually went to Yokohama and skated Shin Yokohama Park last summer with some of the
Okay.
crew from World Roundup. So I'm
Oh,
really
nice.
interested in their scene and how it's sort of like centers around family and like their community and their contest scene's really cool and very
Yeah, yeah.
supportive. Yeah, awesome. Well, I wanted to start with kind of some recent news in your camp. I watched the video that was sort of a short documentary talking about your recent hip replacement surgery and sort of that
Okay.
journey. And when I met you, I was wondering if was I going to see you skate, and but I couldn't tell if you were, what stage of this process you were in. But watching that video was really had an impact on me, just because I'm in my mid 40s now, and I've had injuries too. I think it's something all skaters deal with, and I was just wondering if you could share sort of what that process was like and how your results are.
Yeah, no, good question. Building up to that, going back, let's call it 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I was doing skating all the time, doing shows with Andy Anderson and just having a blast, right? And then tore my Achilles, which wasn't good. And then very soon after that, had this whole hip problem, right? And I'm that guy like super positive, right? But just to try to get through the pain, and they misdiagnosed me off the start. So I just kept going to all these different things to try to get, fix and make it better. And then it wasn't until they took another X-ray and it's like, oh, bone on bone, stage 5, hip, you need a hip replacement. I was like, what the heck? And so game changing. And like I went in there and it was really cool because I was kind of like the guinea pig for you've seen in that video for this new type of table. And of course, like surgery, scary at the same time. And when I got wheeled into the surgery, there was like he was training another 8 or 9 doctors or surgeons to do this. So it was funny because you're nervous, and he goes in and he goes, "Hey, I want everybody in this room to check out this guy at the table here. Professional skateboard. Just go to YouTube this guy." So the whole time I'm in the hospital, I got these people coming up after I come out of surgery. Well, I watched your video and all this, right? So that turned into, the video to be done, that they just picked me as kind of like the spokesperson for this new table. But yeah, totally game changing. Come out of surgery, no pain. Within, a couple months after physio, I'm starting to do, get back into everything I love to do. And, skating started to come back without the pain. It was funny. Rodney Mullen and I had this conversation. He just went through 2 hip surgeries too, and been talking to people like, here's the only way I can say it. Like freestyle was done on the flat, of course, but we all seem to have hip problems, and the only way I can think is because we're jumping up and landing on something with no cushion or anything, right? You're just going right to concrete. Where the vert skaters were going right to their knees, and the street skaters are having problems with their knees because of what they do. So that's the only way I can, think and think maybe why freestylers are having hip problems, I guess.
Right on. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, a lot of those stationary tricks, especially, seem like there's a lot of impact just going
Yeah, a
straight
lot
down.
of impact.
A pogo is not on any kind of spring or anything, so that makes a lot
Exactly.
of sense. And I've heard about Rodney's injuries and some of his gnarly stories about, putting his leg in the wheel well and trying
Well,
to work out the scar tissue and stuff. That's just insane. But
yeah,
it goes to show the passion, that we all have for
yeah,
skating.
yeah, exactly, right. And I think that's a great point. It's you're so passion driven about skating. I do a lot of other sports like ice hockey and baseball and stuff. There's some of those skateboarding, it's just passion driven. right? And you just want to do it no matter what. And you know, one of the breakdowns I had just before surgery is the one of the doctors came in. And he says, "You got to gear up the rest of your life that you'll never be able to skateboard again." And I just lost it because that was the first time. That was like 2 days before surgery, and I
Mhm.
was like, "Okay, I'm willing to deal without the pain, you know, but you can't tell me like spur of the moment that okay, I'm not gonna have any pain, but I can't do anything, all the stuff I love to do." So it was funny because the real surgeon later comes in just before surgery. He goes, "Ah, don't listen to him. Do whatever you want. You'll probably be able to skate again."
Yeah, I'm sure that can really mess with you emotionally. And I
Oh,
remember
huge.
there's
I just couldn't believe I just instantly broke down, right? For somebody to tell you that, I just had an instant breakdown. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
yeah, I mean, even in that video documentary, there was a moment where I could sense you were getting emotional about the just
Yeah,
the idea of not being able to skate, and
yeah,
it hit me hard, man, because you know, dealing with injuries, a lot of times you have to adapt your skating to you know, just what your body's willing to do, and skating's like 60-40 mental and physical, but your body does have to cooperate to a certain extent. Are you able to skate more or less comfortably now and do things that are, you know, fun and maybe even a little progressive?
yeah. I mean, you know, and I think you know, skateboarders like yourself is I think normal population would be like, okay, I'm done. Right? We're skaters. I don't know what it is about skateboarding. We just all have that screw you attitude. And we're gonna do our best, give it 100,000% to get back there, right? So I think I'm just really happy with the zero pain and like at first it was just like how far do you push it, right? Because the last thing you want to do is fall on it again because you're really screwed at that point,
Yeah.
right? So I'm just taking it easy and one step at a time. But it just feels so, I mean, even if I get back, you know, 30 or 40% of what I can do, I'm fine. I'm completely fine with that. Because I went from trying to gear up the rest of my life to never be able to skate again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fortunately, as you know, you can take skating in all kinds of directions. And, you know, whether you're riding transitions or flat or freestyle, there's a lot of possibilities. You just kind of have to adapt. But that kind of segues nicely into the next thing I want to ask you about, which is your personal style of skating. And it's something that I wish people would talk about more in interviews. So I'm gonna kind of go deep and just talk about you had this
Yeah.
very flowing style that was unique, you know, in freestyle. You had a sort of a low impact, kind of free flowing, a lot of footwork and a lot of fundamentals, but the fundamentals were mastered to the point where the footwork was just as impressive as like what a lot of people would consider their flashiest tricks, which may have been like a stationary trick or something. And one of the notes I took is that this low impact flow probably contributed to your longevity and competition and stuff like that because you're flowing, you're not putting a lot of impact on your joints, and you're not, you know, jumping off the board, jumping back on, and you know, spraining your ankle every other go or something like that. But the commitment that it would take to learn to spin the way that you could spin, and the you know successive smoothies and endovers that are just flowing like water. I mean, it's really remarkable that you took it in that direction, and I always found that to be a really relatable style, even though the level was so high. You could sense like, wow, like you're really going to have to put in the time to be able to skate like this. So, and I remember you had mentioned maybe in one of our conversations before that Stacy Peralta had said, look, you know, you should go in this direction. You know, don't worry about what Rodney's doing. Like, go your own way, and you did that. And I just think that's so cool because skating is so individualistic. And when I watch your contest runs, I know who I'm watching. You know what I'm saying? It's your own style, and it's something that's been pretty inspirational to me personally in my kind of pursuit of freestyle. So, any comment on your own trick
No,
development and stuff like that?
thanks for that. That's awesome. I mean, you know, when I look back uh, to some of the things that really helped me get to the smooth factor, so you're right. You know, Stacy Peralta was a big influence on that, and plus, looking at him up here being in skateboarder magazines and stuff, just knew that he had a flowing style. Again, before YouTube, you couldn't actually watch that, but going down to California, it was all about. I tried to learn the trick, and then try to make it look as smooth as I possibly could because I was starting to get that feedback going, oh, you do that way smoother than the other guy kind of thing. So I always knew I needed just to keep my attention focus on that. And you and I have seen a lot of skateboarding. I think you said you started in '87, and I
Hmm.
started in '75, and I've seen thousands of skaters. And like nowadays, when you watch all the pro street skaters, they're of course amazing, but they're very all looking very similar. Where
Hmm.
back in the day, you could be half a mile away and know that was Christian Hosoi riding the ramp or Tony Hawk riding the ramp. And I think flow and style were a bigger part of skateboarding back there. Now it's more about the tech and the trick in it. But after saying that, the guy that brought that back to light, and I've only really gotten behind maybe 4 or 5 skaters in my career that I've like, sure, I've helped skaters get to the next level and get them sponsored and stuff. But the guys that like I really, really got behind in it because I seen something in there that was different. And that's Andy. Like Andy Anderson is one of the people on the planet that changed skateboarding. There's only been a few people in my life that I've seen change skateboarding. And again, it goes back to like maybe the Tony Elvis of the world and Tony Hawk and Rodney, of course. And Andy is another guy that changed it. And when Andy came to the table, the industry and my peers around me was like, Kev, don't waste your time with this guy. He's doing all this weird freestyle stuff, mixing it in with tranny and street, and it's not going to go anywhere. And the board shape that he's got, oh my God, that's never going to go anywhere. And I kept going, hey, I was there when Rodney Mullen was picked up. The industry didn't want nothing to do with that guy. And same with Tony Hawk. And I just kept going, watch what happens, watch what happens. And again, look what happens. So I've always been that guy that if I'm at a skateboard contest and I'm watching 100 skaters and they're all fantastic and incredible, I'm going with the guy what makes it look friggin' easy, right? The minute they're doing all the same trick, but the guy that makes it look easy, there's something special with them because it is very, very difficult to make it look easy. And Andy is one of those guys that he's technically through the roof, but he flows. He makes it look so damn easy.
Hmm. I would totally agree with that. And I'm glad you brought him up. I actually got to meet him too at the World Roundup, and totally cool, totally down to earth guy. And I think something else he contributed, which I think is really important for skaters to see, is that you can be your own individual self and you don't have to conform to what's cool and to what is expected. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are comfortable wearing a helmet when they skate now because of Andy. And
You nailed it.
you know what I mean?
He's not getting paid to wear a helmet. It's nothing like that. He wears a helmet and he could care less what anybody else thinks of him. And one thing I got to hand it to him too, super humble, super down to earth. Think of your teenage years that we've all gone through, right? Think of the peer pressure that he went through,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Think of at 16 years old getting ridiculed at a skateboard park because he's busting out 360s,
Hmm.
right? And wearing a helmet. And again, I just can't give enough praise to him on what he's done to the industry. And you're right. I like helmet sales before Andy Anderson were like try to give them away was difficult, right? And
Yeah.
now it's one of our better sellers. And I contributed most of that, or if not all of it, to Andy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really refreshing. And I think, watching him become more and more embraced by like the greater skate culture and going on like podcasts like the Nine Club. And I don't know if you're familiar with that show, but it's a really
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
show.
yeah.
And those guys are big fans. And seeing everybody give him the proper nod that he deserves is really satisfying. And it just goes to show that there's still plenty of room in skateboarding for individual perspectives and influence.
You nailed it. You nailed it. I mean, it's exactly what I visioned that Andy would do because prior to that, there was a lot of negativity. But you can't go wrong when you prove the best-selling board on the planet. You can't go wrong from his Instagram hits and all that kind of stuff, right? Eventually, you have to cave in and go, he must be doing something right,
Yeah.
right? And not that everybody wasn't supporting him, but the major thing, but there wasn't the support. There was very few people that could see the vision at the end of the day. But hats off to the guy, and and he's staying so humble. He's that guy. Like to me, as a professional, anything athlete and a skateboarder, it's more than just being really good. It's being there for the people. He's that guy that will wait. If he's there 4 hours to sign autographs, he's waiting for the last person that's been waiting for him to get an autograph for 3 or 4 hours, and he's the guy to sign it. So he's so helpful, right? So instead of like pushing, and getting it over with, he'll deal with the mom, he'll deal with the skater, he takes the extra time and energy. And to me, that's professional in every sense of the word when you're a professional athlete.
I agree. And I have to give you credit. for setting that example as well, Kevin, because I've met plenty of pros, throughout my years in skating at demos and events and things. And the experiences that really stick with you are the ones where you feel like you connected with the person and that there's some common acknowledgement. And I felt that with you immediately. I felt that with Andy, and there's been a lot of people who have inspired me based on just that human connection. And you're right; it's very important as a professional to be mindful of that and mindful of
Yeah.
the sort of identity factor, the self-esteem factor of being a skateboarder and what it means to get validation from someone you look up to.
Well, I think too, and thanks for that. I've seen it too. Like when I started skating, you would not want your kid to skate in the 70s, right? We were considered by society as, devil worshippers and drug addicts, right? And, I had that through my whole career as I started traveling the world, where as soon as somebody found out you're a professional skateboarder, they're this like, oh my God, I'm not even going to sit beside you anymore, right? It was just very, very strange to me. So that's why I think that I mean, my goal is to educate the world on what skateboarding can do to you, right? And what a community it is. Like again, I've done all these other sports, just nothing even close to what skateboarding is. I don't know. I don't know even what you call it, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a sport. It's so much more than that, right? And I've run into people, and it's been super satisfying for me, now being in my 60s, where, oh my God, you came to do a shopping mall tour, in 1982, and you changed my life. And I was like, how did I do that? Because I got into skateboarding because of you. I seen you in the mall, right? And my whole thing has been, because I was a vert skater and the whole 9 yards in the 70s. You just did it all, right? And my whole thing is, I'm not trying to create more freestylers. I just think it's a great gateway to get into it,
Mm.
right? And if that guy who starts off in the garage learning flatland stuff and he turns into the best verter street, great. He got into skating. And again, if I was, on a stage talking to the whole skateboard industry, I would be like, we have messed up. We've made it too difficult. Sure, it's cool and it's the coolest sport on the planet and coolest thing to do, but we got to make it easier for these kids. And then you get all the complainers going, well, scooter's so popular. Well, it's so popular because we made it too difficult that, mom and dad who don't know get their kid a skateboard for their Christmas or birthday, and they bring him to a skateboard park. I say no to that every single time, right? You got to get that kid on a board, learn how to turn and all that. I can't believe how many times over my career that I've gone to, some place to teach kids how to skateboard, and they come right up to you and they go, how do you do an ollie kickflip? I was like, do you know how to push?
Yeah.
And they don't,
Right.
you have them to go from one point to another and they struggle to do that. And it's like, okay, this is a more advanced trick. You got to learn the basics first before you get there.
For sure, for sure. I can totally relate to that. And I've done some skate like lessons and things and interacted. I'm a teacher, middle school teacher. So I I try to reinforce that with kids who are interested in skating is just, get comfortable on your board first and
Yeah,
foremost and learn
100%.
learn to have fun pushing around
Yeah,
because that's the essence of skating to begin with. And then
yeah,
you
100%.
then you can take it any direction you want. This
Yeah,
kind of segues nicely into another topic I wanted to talk to you about. One of, to my mind, one of the most interesting eras of skating where there was so much progression and so much cultural development, and yet there was a very strict set of rules that you seem to have to follow was the like early 1990s. And this is
yeah,
also coincided with freestyle kind of dying out,
yeah,
vert taking a huge backseat to street,
yeah,
and then all these sort of revolutionary changes in everything from board shapes to fashion to the music that was in the videos to the sort of quality and aesthetic of videos and how those became more important. And I'm just interested to know, where were you at this point in terms of like your relationship with skating? And I know you had already branched out by then and were working doing more industry stuff, and you had the skate park, the skate ranch, and I'm sure you saw firsthand guys like Colin McKay and some of these guys that were starting to develop skateboarding and push it further and further, like in the Plan B videos and stuff like that. So, as far as like being a freestyle skater, coming from a freestyle community, what impact did that have on you guys? Because you hear a lot about the vert skaters and the woes they experience, but you don't hear too much about freestylers. And suddenly there's no more contests, or if you're involved in an event, you're just doing a demo off to the side, and there wasn't the internet, so what was going on at that point?
Man, I love your question. This was amazing. To me, it was the kind of the dark ages of skating. Like I get it, it was changing drastically. So I had pros and cons about that. Is and I kid around with Rodney. I've kidded around this for decades. Is I was there when the head people of the skateboard industry. Because what would happen would when I was riding for the Bones Brigade, I guess I still do. We would all go out for dinner after an event. So when we went out for dinner, we were with dinner with the NSA organizers, which was kind of like the X Games back then, and all the organizers for event. And this is 1990, so street skating really has kicked in by this point. And I'm listening to the organizers who are right beside me at a different table. And this is like, Frank Hawk and all the people that were organizing the events. And one of the comments came up, said, okay, we're in Chicago next year. Chicago wants us, and this city wants us, and this city wants us. So we're going to start, going to these places. But street's so big and it's so stressful running 3 events. Now we're doing freestyle, vert, and street. And let's face it, Rodney's going to win every event anyway. So let's not do freestyle. As soon as I heard that, I was like, they're right. But my heart just sunk going, there's going to be no more there's going to be no more pro freestyle events. And what are the new and up and coming guys going to have to look forward to now, because they don't have something to strive for? So what came about after that meeting, and I'm listening to every word, is like, okay, the next one, let's just do a freestyle demo. We'll bring in the top 5 freestyle guys and we'll do a demo. And I'm thinking, and I never forget this. I went there and they had to stop the vert riders so we could do the freestyle demo on the flat bottom of the vert ramp. And my first thought was like, the people in the audience are going to freak out. They want to watch Tony and Kristen skate. What are we stopping a vert contest for to bring out these freestyle things at the bottom? So that was step number 1. And that was the last time it happened. We only got to do that once. So then what happened was freestyle went completely underground. I mean, I swear to God, I was spending thousands of dollars to get to these events. And it was a warehouse that didn't have electricity, that they had to get a floodlight to put on. 5 judges with a scrap of paper, a little ghetto blaster. Hey, give me your CD. You could barely hear it. And that's what it went to, with, maybe 5 people watching. So we went from the stadium type of stuff to way down here. And then another thing that happened was when freestyle was basically dead at that point in the early 90s. And you're right, the boards were changing drastically. The wheels were changing drastically, not to the benefit of skateboarding, because the wheels went down to what, 39 millimeters or 37? Give me a break. Like that's maybe fine and polished cement in California, but how do you do that in Virginia where you're from? Or how do you do that in Canada? The roads are just way too rough. So to me, it didn't do anything for skating. And then it was funny because, and I think Rodney went through this too, I had to go to skate parks because my kids were really into it. And I had to go to skate park and get ridiculed. Just ridiculed, like, old school buddy, get out of here. And I would just keep skating. And sure, I could skate park and stuff too, right? But I'd come back and do freestyle. As soon as I started busting out anything old school, there was like, get the hell out of the park. Because manuals were coming in big, right? So I was there for, an hour or something. Sure enough, a manual contest would break out. And I'd be like, can I join into that? Right? And they're just like, yeah, sure, if you want. And they're really, really negative because they're the cool skaters, 18 years old. And not to brag, but I would kick their friggin' ass, right? They would just do it, for a short. I would push and do the whole entire park, right? And that would change their thought process. I was still looked upon as the old school get out of here, but I just worked them. Right. And I felt pretty good about that, leaving the park with my kids. I was just like, okay, there's no way a freestyle skateboarder, can't just carry that as far as forever.
Yeah.
We got balance, right?
That's great. To me, it's almost like an untold story of this subculture within skating, which was already a subculture. And I mean, even in the 90s, being a skater in Virginia wasn't looked at as a cool thing. But then you have these freestylers, like as you say, that are still putting on DIY events and still trying to kind of keep their dream alive, despite being shunned by the skateboard community. We're all supposed to be part of it together. And the other thing that I think of is, I was around skating in the late 80s. I knew what freestyle was. To me, it was very obvious that the progression of street skating came from freestyle. And if you're talking about flipping into a manual, well, where do you think that came from? And watching Rodney transition into street, it seemed very obvious to me. But I was also very aware that like freestyle was not considered relevant or cool at all. And like I actually never met a freestyle skateboarder my whole life until I pretty recently, just because of my trajectory and when I discovered freestyle. So, thanks for speaking on that. It's really interesting to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, no, it's again, you nailed it. I've used that term a couple. We're a subculture of a subculture, right? And it's weird to try to explain it to people where, like, when I did shows with Andy, right? We had basically three freestylers in town, and we were building this snowball effect where that fair wanted us, and then the small wanted us, and we were starting to build up really quick. And Andy and I did a ton of shows together, and it was amazing because Andy got famous and started traveling the world and he wasn't here anymore. My other two guys, one guy took a job in China teaching because he was a freestyle. He taught over there for 5 or 6 years. And the other guy moved to Japan.
Hmm.
And so now my network of doing the shows. So the fall, get this, the next year, all these fairs. Oh my God, we got to have you here again. And I want you here. And we were at that point, we were this kind of exploding. And I had to go to them and go, I can't do it anymore. Why? Because I don't have the skaters. What do you mean? I see skaters everywhere. No, no, no. You don't understand, right? There's basically three freestylers in Canada, and I got them all for the show, and I've lost them all. So where do I go? Like, it wasn't like I could pick, if it was street skating, of course, you just pick the next good guy, right? But I didn't have the next good guy for freestyle until now that I've got Orson Marys, who's coming out of Vancouver. I could do shows with that guy anywhere at any time. He's amazing. But it was weird at that time when we built this business up. But and this in society, general population, like, Kevin, you're crazy. Just pull another skateboarder. Like, you don't understand. This is a freestyle, a subculture of a subculture, and I don't have that guy to pull from.
Yeah, yeah, I understand completely, and I actually know Ryan a little bit. The guy
Oh,
that's
Brunel.
in Japan, and he's really great, and I could definitely see your influence on his skating as well. And Orson, I met at the World Roundup, and it's incredible to see his progression. You know, he hasn't even been skating what like 5 years, and he's already looks so natural on the board.
Yeah,
Um,
and the funny thing is on that too is when we talked earlier about finding somebody who makes it look easy,
yeah,
right? And that's the guy. So I've been and witnessed the contest with him where I have other people coming up to me. Well, why didn't I place higher? I did all the same tricks as Orson and some better. I was like, okay, he's got one thing above you. He makes it look easy. I don't care if you have the tricks that he can do or better. He just makes it look easy and fun, and that's going to get him a long way with his career, right? So, yeah, it's super exciting to watch him. But again, that's another guy I got behind because of the ease. And when I first met him, he'd only been skating 2 years, and I was like, "There's no way you've only been skating 2 years. It looks like you've got so many years experience." And it was funny the very first time. I don't know if I told you this before, but when I was talking to him, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to go in the rookie division of the World Roundup." I said, "No, you're not." And he goes, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're too damn good." I said, "You're going to make the finals for the amateurs." He goes, "No way. I'm never going to make the finals." I said, "You're going to make top three, buddy." Like,
mhm.
I've been looking at this stuff long enough to know.
Yeah,
And so he ended up in first, and then goes to Euro and gets first in that one too.
yeah. All I had to do is watch him do a spacewalk, and I thought, wow, he's got
You
it.
nailed it. You
Yeah.
nailed it. That's what did it to me. But one of the first tricks he did was spacewalks, and you can make spacewalks look ugly, right?
Hmm.
All the time, right? You nailed it, right? The minute you can make it look like Mike Osterman's of the world, you got it, right? Because every other trick that you do is going to have that same flow and that same style. There's only a certain way that spacewalks look good.
I agree, and that's something that freestyle's really taught me is a kind of an extension of my whole skate vocabulary. Is just the subtleties of your movements and the kind of compositions that you put together in your runs, and it all makes a big difference for sure
A
in the way
huge
way
difference.
it
You're right.
looks.
Yeah, for sure it does.
I want to talk a little bit about your classic board and your shape and your graphic. And I have one of them here. And this has been something that I've just been fascinated with since I got into freestyle because this was one of the smallest wheelbases, one of the smallest boards, one of the skinniest boards available at the time. You know, just for comparison for the audience out there, you know, I have a size 42, and if you put two of them on the Kevin
Oh
deck,
my God. It's
you're,
perfect.
you're at the end right there. You know? So that's two of my feet. But I really enjoyed riding. I've ridden two of these, and there's just something about the way it responds. It's really special and it's really really fun. But I know you don't ride this shape anymore. I observed, I kind of spied on what you had at the World Roundup, and it looks to be like a mini street board with kind of medium concave, medium steepness. But that's your new ride, and you don't do the offset wheels. You just kind of have regular hard street wheels. What are your thoughts on like that progression from one shape to your current shape?
Right, yeah. So interesting question again. Thanks for these great line of questions. I was forced into that, believe it or not. So here's the story on that. So again, going back to those early 90s, try to get a freestyle board. Powell doesn't have any left. Like, why would they even make them? So I was like, let's get a mini cab. So took the mini cab, and crazy enough, when me and Rodney were skating back then, that's what we wanted. We wanted concave upturned nose. Now, when we went to George to do that, there was a couple of reasons why they couldn't do it. The molds at that time were 10 by 30, so it didn't work, right? So, and they weren't going to build a mold for a freestyle board. Why? Because we sold 5 boards a month, right? There was no market there for anybody to throw in tens of thousands of dollars to tool all that up for freestyle. But when I got that mini cab, I kid you not, it was like a dream come true. I was like, that's what I friggin' wanted, back in the mid 80s, right? So I've ridden it ever since. I've never gone back because it works so well with the concave. It's just so much better than the upturned nose for all the manual stuff. Again, going back to the crazy, that's what we wanted. We just couldn't get it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's fun. Something I find interesting about freestylers in general is everybody seems to be kind of picky and idiosyncratic about what they ride, and I
Well,
think it's
I
cool.
have to take my board on the plane because if it got lost, right? So traveling with the Bone Spaghetti in the 80s, what would happen if it got lost? Oh, Virginia, where you're from, walking to the local skate shop, good luck.
Yeah,
Get a board.
it was
Now, if
rare.
I was
It
a
was,
vert skater, no problem, right? Get the indies and I can get all the stuff to set it up, or a street board or whatever. Guerrero would have no problem. Tony would have no problem. Kevin would have had a problem traveling around the world getting a freestyle board. So that puppy came on with me on the plane because I couldn't afford to not have it when I got there.
Indeed, indeed. Well, Kevin, this has been a great conversation. I just want to thank you for, giving me some time. And I'm planning to come back to Canada in May, and hopefully I'll see you there. And
Uh,
we got an event planned in Southern California that Mike Osterman's doing.
oh yeah, the U.S. Open. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to attempt to do that one too. And just, I really enjoy being part of this community. It's kind of been like a rebirth of my skating. I've been skating for like over 35 years, but the last few years have been the most exciting in a long time because of
That's
freestyle. So
great to hear. No, great interview. Thanks for all the great questions, and look forward to seeing you up here in May for sure.